they're talking all nonstop about Chris Jones. And then they pan to Chris Jones in the stadium. And I'm thinking to myself, outside of a guy being hurt, I can't remember the last time I saw a guy go to the game and he was a part of the team, but he was like holding out. It was so weird.
It was
and he's got
strange.
the two mob guys on either side of him looking like he's, got, I don't know, bodyguards from The Sopranos. I don't even know what's going on. But all I kept thinking about, I'm watching their defense struggle to stop the run. I'm watching them struggle to even wrap up Jared Goff, and we'll get to him in a second. And all I kept thinking was, thank God the 49ers and Nick Bosa came to an agreement.
Right, no doubt.
Because I'm looking at Kansas City right now, and they have got to be thinking to themselves this morning, boy, that game has to play out a little different with Chris Jones in the middle.
Oh, it does. And even Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce suffering that injury in practice, a freak injury.
Brutal.
To me, if they have Travis Kelce, they win this football game because Kadarius Toney, whatever he say his name, I don't even want to say his name because he was dropping everything. And I got to drop him for my fantasy team. I thought he would be a factor in this football game. That crosser he dropped at the end of the game, the drop pass on the interception return. What a terrible game for him as Mahomes tried to make everything happen. And the fact that Kansas City was in that game, but looking at Detroit, they're another team in the NFC. We got to look at.
Oh,
they have an offensive line.
They're coming.
And a defensive line
and they're young.
that can travel. And they're young and they're full of
Hutchinson's way
arrogance.
better than I gave him any credit for.
Hutchinson's a baller, but getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the safety.
CJ,
he changed their secondary.
Can I ask you a question? Why weren't the Niners in on him?
I don't know.
I know he rubs teammates the wrong way because that's kind of like a fact at this point, whether it's New Orleans, Philadelphia, but that guy makes plays, dude. He's one of those guys, hate him on the other team, would love him on my team. The Niners should have been in on him.
I'm looking up his contract right now here. Now, we could play this game like, hey, man, they should have been on everything.
But he's a tough, physical slot corner who comes up and stuffs guys. He makes plays.
1 year, $8 million contract.
So they gave Isaiah Oliver a $2 for
contract.
$6, 2 for $7. Okay, it's a little richer than they can afford.
1 year, $8 million
I'd love to
contract.
have him. And here's the other thing. I'm watching Detroit, right? And obviously, the Chris Jones thing is real. The Travis Kelce thing is real. They're going to be in the market, Kansas City, to either sniff around with Mike Evans or one of these receivers that's going to be available, one of these teams that wants to tank to set themselves up.
Right.
I'm calling it chaos for Caleb.
Right. I like that.
Instead
chaos
of tank for Tua.
Yeah.
Chaos for Caleb, although we're a little ahead of ourselves because it's literally week 1.
Right.
But I'm watching that game, and I'm watching that offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And what they've done with that team is so impressive. They got the 2 running backs. Obviously, Montgomery looked the best he's ever looked.
Hey, Gibbs ran hard.
Gibbs looks special.
Gibbs is going to be a problem. And the tight end, Laporta.
Oh, he's a player.
I've got him on a few fantasy teams. I got him on a few fantasy teams just as a sleeper. He's going to be a problem.
Absolutely.
And, of course, St. Brown. And they're going to get Jameson Williams back midway through the year after a 6-game suspension.
I like Jameson Williams.
He's going to be a problem.
Yes.
Marvin Jones Jr. is a veteran. And Jared Goff is in his element. Jared Goff has been one of the most disrespected quarterbacks out there. Right. Shout out Moran Catholic. Shout out Northern California. Jared Goff getting traded there, and he was a laughingstock. They basically said, he's the reason why the Rams didn't win the Super Bowl. And the Rams go out and win the Super Bowl.
2 firsts.
Huh?
To take the money, you have to give 2 firsts.
No doubt. You take the money, but now you look at him, he's embraced Detroit.
Yes.
He got the heck out of California for the first time basically in his career.
Yeah.
He goes to Motown. He's embraced that city.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's sitting back saying, this is my team. And I love this post-game interview. This is what we're supposed to do. We were expected to win. We expect to win, and it's just one game. And you think about Dan Campbell and what he's built.
Hey.
I was talking to Lubman last night on the
fake
phone.
Punt, backed up in your own on the 20.
I respect it.
Early in the year, I thought it was a tone setter.
I respect it.
And I love that he went for it on 4th down because if you pump the ball back to Mahomes there, even though they didn't convert, you're only exchanging 15 yards of field position. Why does it take someone like Man Campbell, a.k.a. Dan Campbell, to go for it in that situation?
Well,
that's good, smart football.
Well, he did that last year to end the season against Green Bay. Said, we're going for it.
Yep.
We're going to get a first down, and we're going to bleed the clock. Now, Lubman was on my show call yesterday. Lubman was like, what can the Niners take from this, man? They need to really set the tone on Sunday. Well, and I was trying to explain to Lubman, the Niners and Detroit are in different places.
Totally different spots.
The league doesn't really respect Detroit yet, although I think that's changing really quickly. Exactly. The Niners have everybody's respect.
Yep.
They're in a different place. But Detroit's trying to get to a place where San Francisco, and they may get there this year. They just may. But that is a continuation from last year for Detroit. They built that momentum in the second half of the season,
totally agree.
and they carried it over all season.
Totally agree.
And I remember we had Baldy on, and not a lot of people took this into account. I went and did some research on this when he said this. The scrimmage against the New York Giants said Detroit got after him. And then you find out that they scrimmaged Jacksonville again, and they got after Jacksonville. I'm thinking, wow, they had joint practices with two different teams. They beat up on the New York Giants. They beat up a little bit on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they bring the same team. Now, I was wondering, man, David Montgomery over Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams after crying on Hard Knocks last year.
No, everyone thought that.
17 touchdowns last year. But, man, Montgomery ran hard last night, man.
And Gibbs looks like a special player.
And they got the offensive line. They may have the best offensive line in all of pro football.
So, the Jared Goff thing. I don't think he'll ever be considered in the Mahomes, Josh Allen, Burrow category. Arm talent he has good arm talent, not great arm talent is what I would say. Although I think he's gotten better on all the short stuff in terms of changing his arm angles. You know what my number one thing was with Jared Goff? I used to think he was a stiff statue. Is he still a little stiff? Absolutely. He's not the most athletic guy in the world. His footwork has gotten so much better.
Yep.
And he looks so much more calm in that pocket. They set up a platform for him to step up into his throws and throw the ball down the field. And St. Brown is a stud.
Oh, he's a baller.
He's an absolute stud.
Their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, puts them in great situations. They're a dynamic team. Even Reynolds at wide receiver, the former Ram.
He dropped the ball early in the game on the screen. They
Reynolds
kept going back to him, and he was making plays.
Josh Reynolds is a problem, man. He's a good player. Good player. So this team's got speed. They have physicality. They believe in their system. They started shredding people.
That
Detroit
linebacker
in the NFC. And this is why this window for the 49ers.
See?
You have to take advantage of it this year.
I know.
This is why they're going all in on this year. Because a team like Detroit's coming. A team like the New York Giants, soon they're going to be coming. The Commanders, they have new ownership. They want to make a splash at some point. They will be coming. Green Bay and Jordan Love. Now, they may not have Christian Watson this Sunday. He's been out with a hamstring injury. But I believe they're a team that could be coming. You have to take advantage of the window right now because a team like Detroit is going to give a lot of team fits.
Honest to God, though, take a step back as just a sports fan. I don't think anyone has any ill will toward the Detroit Lions at all.
No.
Even the Green Bay Packers and the Bears and the Vikings who are in their division, I'm sure they've got the rivalry going back for years. But, think about it. Who is not rooting for the Detroit Lions and their fans?
What about Dan Campbell? Because he was the laughingstock his rookie year.
Him.
And his first presser.
In Miami, he was a joke.
Right.
When he took over as an interim.
Yeah, no doubt.
Who was the sleepy old coach? Was it Philbin he took over for?
Joe Philbin.
When they fired him in the middle of the year with Tannehill?
Joe Philbin. So he took over. In his first presser, I'm going to bite kneecaps off and blah, blah, blah. And people were laughing at him. And I kind of chuckled a little bit. But then Hard Knocks, you got to get to know him a little bit. And they got off to a rough start last year, 1-6, and I felt bad because they were in some games. They were getting close. They were getting close. And then somehow, some way, they just got that one win. And they start to turn it around. And slowly but surely, the Detroit superfan who we had on
Great guy.
a couple years ago, I think about him and I follow him on Twitter still.
Too.
And I'm like, you know what? Good for Detroit. And to see all that Honolulu blue at Arrowhead Stadium. Cool. My guy, Matt Payne, who's just at the wedding in New Orleans, somehow, some way, is at Arrowhead Stadium last night. Sending me in big dog pictures like, hey, what do you guys think? I'm like, how'd you get there? What are you doing in Kansas City?
Was he flying on the private Hunt plane?
Hey, man, big got big money. Shout out to Matt Payne and the Paynes. He ended up in Arrowhead, and he's just thinking, he goes, this place is loud. And then you see the crowd, you see all that Honolulu blue, just like you saw at Lambeau Field. And you're saying, you know what? Detroit fans are out here. They're feeling good about themselves. They feel good about this football team.
Who's the biggest Detroit Lion fan in your brain in the history of pop culture? Who's the biggest Detroit?
Pop culture?
Yeah, because I know exactly where I'm going
Kid
with this.
Rock?
Oh, I didn't even think of Kid Rock.
Well,
That's a good one.
I tell you what,
That's a good one.
Whenever I was at Ford Field, when I went to Ford Field, and I went to that Lions game at Ford Field back in 2010. 2010, wow, it's been 13 years. They kept showing Kid Rock in the suite. They love showing Kid Rock up there. He's a Michigan guy, blah, 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 blah. Michigan guy. So that's all I
was going to go Tim the Toolman Taylor, Home Improvement.
Oh,
when I think of the Detroit Lions, I think of Tim the Toolman Taylor.
I'm in that same boat.
I don't know why.
Really?
I just
you guys do?
That's
Right,
Chatsky's got to. No, I'm the same way. Yeah, big Lions fan.
Tim the Toolman.
Am I wrong?
No, that's literally where I went
Literally,
to too.
like when I think of the Lions, like I think of like Home Improvement, the show Home Improvement, because it was like very influential. And I've just always loved Barry Sanders. I've always had a soft spot in my heart.
Yeah.
Megatron, one of my favorite players of all time. I always had a soft spot in my heart for the Lions.
Yeah,
and I felt like America was wrapping their arms around the Detroit Lions. We did it last year against Green Bay. Like, who wasn't rooting for them to knock out Green Bay? And then last night, we were all rooting for that.
Yeah, no, I Tim's too much. Home Improvement. I wasn't
didn't mean
the
to throw
biggest
you
fan.
for a loop.
No. I forgot there were Lions fans up there. I forgot. Yeah, I tried to get that show a couple
What was
times.
the guy with the flannel? Was it Al Borland?
Yeah, Al. Yeah.
That show was funny.
Very
Come on.
underrated show.
It was so
all right.
good.
Who's the neighbor? They never showed his face. Wilson. Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
I watched a couple. Yeah, it was
my sister
all
had a huge crush on him.
right. It was all right.
I'm going way back in the way back
that show.
machine.
What was it? An ABC show, right?
Yeah, I mean, it had its moments. It wasn't it wasn't the greatest, but Tim the Toolman Taylor was like an iconic, dad of television.
All
Jim
right.
Cozumore wishes he was Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Brought up Cozumore yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, we were talking
A little
about
running, a
Cozumore.
little passing.
Running a little passing. It's a Football Friday, but